January 17th, 2023. It's weird to say that year, but we're here already. So today we're actually joined by some special guests, not just those that are online, I should say in the digital world, within the different meeting rooms. I'll show you the different meeting rooms real fast for those that really have no clue as to what we're doing. These are different meeting rooms that folks can actually come into, and they may have learned about the digital world from different areas. Maybe it's Clear United with the ripple effects. Maybe it's the prior town hall meetings. But these are actually Clear One meeting rooms that people can basically personally or business-wise get involved with. They can create their own spaces online, whether they're webinars, which are one-to-many, or whether they're meetings, which is many-to-many, which means you can share your screen, you can stream. But in this case, we actually have all these different meetings that are live with different people in them. And participants can basically ask questions live, and then we're actually streaming it live. We're streaming it on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and then 2 other sources, which we'll talk about in the future. So we're grateful for you taking your time, your attention, and really just for taking an interest in something that may feel right, but it may not make a lot of sense as we are currently rolling it out. When we say rolling it out, it's been a long time. I'll go through real quick. I'll just go through some introductions before I jump into a very important kind of review and introduce some of the guests that are here. Again, 2023, these councils basically are to review the prior week's progress and then answer any general questions and really drive general awareness so that folks understand what this is all about, so that really we're seeking to understand, then be understood, but we're not twisting truth. So it's important for truth to get out, but do it in such a way that we don't rush it, but at the same time, the awareness spreads as it's intended to or supposed to. So with that being said, we're grateful for those that are helping on a support standpoint. If you do have questions that are support related, Elle, Wally, Terrence, and John from the US or Australia are online to help us. So thank you for those that are there. This is a private membership association, primarily focused around members for the digital world. Some of the things we're going to talk about may be forward-looking and even crazy. The things we'll discuss are phones connecting with storage and then enabling a new type of digital world and ecosystems for those that are around. The model is simple. You connect the phone with decentralized storage, but it really has to rebuild all the architecture that we're already used to. So applications, web services, software development kits, all of it has to actually be rebuilt. So with that being said, we're going to watch a real quick video, and then we're going to introduce some guests. Here we go.
Your Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, Talofa and warm Pacific greetings from Tuvalu. Last year, I addressed this August Assembly proclaiming that we must take bold and alternative action today to secure tomorrow. I explained that although we needed global collaboration to end the climate crisis, we in the Pacific would not sit idly by and wait for the world to act. Today, I speak again from my country, from a small islet that is likely to be one of the first spots in Tuvalu to be submerged by rising sea levels. Since COP26, the world has not acted, and so we in the Pacific have had to act. We have seen temperature rise projections remain well above 1.5 degrees Celsius, foretelling the imminent disappearance of islets like this one. We have had to take our own precautionary steps with the Future Now project. As our land disappears, we have no choice but to become the world's first digital nation. Our land, our ocean, our culture are the most precious assets of our people. And to keep them safe from harm, no matter what happens in the physical world, we'll move them to the cloud. Islands like this one won't survive rapid temperature increases, rising sea levels, and droughts, so we'll recreate them virtually. Piece by piece, we'll preserve our country, provide solace to our people, and remind our children and our grandchildren what our home once was. This is also a matter of sovereignty. We in Tuvalu are taking bold steps to ensure that our statehood and our maritime boundaries are permanently maintained, despite extreme land loss due to climate change and sea level rise. Our digital nation will provide an online presence that can replace our physical presence and allow us to continue to function as a state. We have been working on these initiatives for the past year, building our capacity to retain and preserve our nation and the unity of our people, even as climate change spirals out of control. Global action must be taken to provide the best case scenario, but we in the Pacific are planning and preparing for a worst case scenario. We need to be able to secure our statehood, our maritime boundaries, and our endowments, no matter what happens in the future. The world's inaction has led our Pacific region to take greater action and forge our own path as leaders on the international stage. But our action alone cannot stop the current trajectory of climate change. Only concerted global effort can ensure that Tuvalu does not move permanently online and disappear forever from the physical plane. Our Tuvaluan culture dictates that we all must share responsibility for the global predicament caused by the climate crisis. Together, we must stop fossil fuels emissions and fossil fuels production and majorly boost financing for loss and damage, mitigation, and adaptation measures. It is not just Tuvalu that is affected, but the world is facing extreme weather events and shocking temperatures. Without a global conscience and a global commitment to our shared well-being, we may soon find the rest of the world joining us online as their lands disappear. It has long been the time for action, but we have not stepped up to the challenge. We must start doing so today. Otherwise, within a lifetime, Tuvalu will only exist here. Paftailasi, Tuvalu Mateatua.
So when I lived in New Zealand, I learned a little bit about the important welcome and the history of who the individuals are.
I feel unhappy and unsafe. I feel sad and scared. I feel like a homeless kid hunting for a place to shelter.
I keep looking at their photos.
I've watched this, and this is an important one to watch, and we should. But before we move into this, I really would like to introduce an individual that you just heard from the prior video. His name is Simon. And not many people welcome invites from others, especially when it's a cold reach out, an email, a LinkedIn invite. But he did. And he welcomed it with an open mind, with open heart. And he did it in such a way that was still reserved and wise. I don't know how old he is, but I believe his spirit is beyond his years, and I believe that he is a warrior, and his bloodlines have been prepared to be able to fight the fight and stand up to what is coming. I don't know him well, but I know he's a man of few words. But the words that he does say, he's very articulate. He's very he's doing it for the right reason. He went into government because things were not right, and he wanted to make them right. And here he finds himself fighting a fight that may not be something that
Claiming that we must take both.
that he intended to fight, but that he knows needs to be fight. So with that being said, I'd just like to quickly introduce Simon. They basically see you on a stream here. This is going to be new for Simon, but I'd like to introduce him and give him the opportunity to just say hi, or maybe just feel the flow. But ultimately, we've probably only spent 3.5 hours together, but I believe that our lives have been run in parallel, and the jurisdiction and connection that was made yesterday, I think was made long ago, maybe even before this life, but that may be a different conversation. So with that being said, we just want to introduce you and give you the opportunity to meet some of the folks. These are folks that care about what you said in this video, sovereignty. Because the audience that you had for this was the United Nations, announcing the first digital nation. But I guarantee sovereignty is not at the top of their list. As a matter of fact, it is actually eroding sovereignty with what they're doing. But that's for them to prove, right? That's for them to say, no, we care about human rights, we care about freedom, we care about, so sovereignty, the ability to leverage really the digital world and an ecosystem or a digital nation and a vehicle to be able to drive stability, consistency, freedom, autonomy, the ability to live where you want to live, but yet have the conveniences and the protection and ability to just stand up and live life is what we're really contemplating and talking about by using technology in such a way where it can actually be, I wouldn't say a servant to all of us, but it can actually help us. It can help us come together, to unite. So with that being said, is there any feedback or thoughts that come to heart or mind?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you. Just by way of introduction, my name is Sami Kofi. I'm from Tuvalu. Tuvalu is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We're one of the smallest countries in the world. And I'm serving currently as a Minister for Justice, Communications, and Foreign Affairs. And as you've heard from the video, there's a few things we've been working on for the past year. One of which is obviously looking at our statehood, looking at how we can preserve our culture. Because in Tuvalu, we have a very strong community culture, a sharing culture. We live with our extended families. We value the well-being of every member of our community. And so those are the things that are valuable to us in Tuvalu. And I felt that those things are more important than anything else that we have in Tuvalu. And so I was looking into technology, how we can help support that and preserve that. And not just preserve, but how we present that and then try to influence the world as well. Because we feel also that the world is becoming a single community. Whether we like it or not, our actions are affecting our neighbors and people living on the other side of the world. So I feel quite strongly that the values that underpin our way of life, the community way of life, are the values we need to resolve many of our problems that we have at this time. A lot of these things came to me, I guess, through just thinking and considering how to preserve this, how can we use climate change as a platform to reach the world. I mean, this digital nation idea was obviously thinking about when Tuvalu finally disappears or we're forced to relocate, how can we have a framework in place to coordinate ourselves as a government? And so when I got in touch with you, Michael, it felt like almost like a divine connection, I would say. The first meeting we had online, that got me thinking. But I'm a kind of person who scrutinizes things and then think of. But there was something that I felt when we met. It was almost like a world has already been built, systems that you've created, and the thing that I've been searching for, things that have been on my mind for so long, has found a landing place, in a sense. And it's almost like a plug-in. You just plug it in and we're ready to go. Yep. And that was only reaffirmed again in our meeting yesterday. And I'm glad I have my two colleagues here with me as well who...
Maybe you could introduce, because these individuals are very special and very, I mean, it's amazing how you've all ended up at the same place. Mm-hmm. Like when Simon and I first talked, I just blabbed. You guys know me a lot, I blab a lot, but I just blabbed and threw up on him all of these things that have been prepared. And I sat back and I tried to think about it from his perspective, like, does he even care about this stuff? Or does he just think we're crazy? But he was very open-minded to it. He was like, this is what we've been looking for and waiting for. And so I said, can I fly down to you next week? And because you guys know me, it's one of those, you just bold and you just go and do. And he says, well, next week I won't be here, but I'll be at a different location. And so I said, well, what's that location? Can I go meet you there? And so, we just, me, I'm just persistent. So we went to the same city, then we went to the same event, then we ended up in the same room. and he said he was at a certain area. I just walked past him, and yesterday he came up and he says, "Hello, we're here." And so that's kind of how it all unfolded. But these two individuals that he's sitting with are very special. I know they know it individually, but we could not do this with just Simon and myself sitting here. The trusted advisor to his right, Peter, is a man that I believe, I don't know how old he is, but I believe he has been prepared to do what he's doing. He's worked with Amazon, he's worked with Telstra, he's actually living, for those in Australia, you'll love this, he actually is from Melbourne. So, and the opportunity for these two to get together is not very common. And then this young lady, I'll call her Tina because I can't even say her whole name, but she is a diamond in the rough, and probably not even in the rough. She's just a gem sitting there in the sand. But she's technical. She's a mother. She's an amazing servant to humanity. She understands RPMs, operating systems, development, crypto assets, from Bitcoin to Ethereum to miners to architectures. And she's from this beautiful little land of less than around 10,000 people. So you tell me what kind of jewel we have here. And is it okay if I just call you Tina? Because I mess up. Anoya. So how else would you introduce these individuals to your right and to your left?
I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay, all right. You want to start?
Okay, so I'm Noya. You call me Noya. I'm like what Michael introduced. I've been involved in a lot of technical companies. I've been involved in communities, not just in Tuvalu, but around the world. We do developments and software, networking and other stuff. But currently working as a CEO for Tuvalu Telecom. So I'm working closely with the Honorable Minister Simon. And it's always like our path cross, and then things just weaved in, smoothly. And it's something that we always dream of. We want to save Tuvalu, and we want to create a world that is, no trouble, one world, one peace, and it's always been there.
No trouble, one world, one peace. Does that sound familiar? That's beautiful. And so, will you describe the telecom, how it works? Where's the connections coming from? How do people access it? Maybe just kind of go through the architecture real fast.
Okay, so we pretty much based on satellite connectivity. We don't have cable to the islands. Infrastructure development is quite difficult because we have to ship equipment to. Shipment is it's always a hard thing that we do. We lease bandwidth from satellite operators all over the world. So far, we lease satellite. We do it as redundancy as well because it's satellite based. We can do. We are in the process of securing a cable for Tuvalu, but as of now, we are depending a lot on satellite bandwidth, and the capacity is not what you expected. Can I say? Yeah, so we are total capacity of bandwidth download and upload is around 800 meg for the entire nation.
800 meg for the whole country.
For the whole country.
So that's download.
That's both download and uploads. Yeah.
Download and upload is 800 meg.
Yes, and then we have to because the islands are scattered. Deployment of mobile networks is a challenge. We try to get to the island, as quickly as possible. I came into this job a year ago, so I'm trying to build a more resilient, conducive kind of platform so people can use technology to do all kinds and get the value out of this kind of technology. And part of this is because of the Honorable Minister has been very supportive for the company. And we're still building.
Wow.
We're still building.
So what part of the world do you know runs a whole country on 800 meg of bandwidth? What's the latency like?
It is. We have, there are challenges with the infrastructure itself, congested
Mhm.
of the network through when.
Do you do packet prioritization, or how are you doing
Yeah,
it?
we do that.
Okay.
We do all kinds of simulation. We do kinds of load balancing,
Yeah.
just to give internet connectivity fair to everyone. We are the only provider, so you can imagine.
So there's 8 islands,
Yeah.
right? So about 10,000 people, 8 islands, and
6,000 are in the capital.
Majority on the capital,
okay.
because everything.
So the internet connection that's 800 meg comes to the 6,000 people on
Yes.
one island. And then other islands would basically get their own satellite uplinks is to get out, or if they are.
We are the hub on Funafuti. The specific coming in, it's just one hub, so it goes up to
So you have one satellite connection coming from
ABS.
okay.
Yeah.
So not a majority of the folks that we work with, bandwidth is already there. I mean, for those a year ago, the smallest island we worked with was Atutaki, which was on the other side of the Pacific, it's in the Cook Islands, and they actually have full fiber, but it's a small. I would even say it's probably a smaller island than your island, right? So
a smaller population. As well.
Oh yeah, well, Cook Islands in general, but I would say that you have been forgotten, ignored, but you still, since 1971, have been your own country. You have your own, when I say prime minister, I'm going to say it from it is what it is today, because that's how colonialism has just spread its tentacles and seeds, so to speak. But you've got your own judiciary system, financial system, passport system, your own land management system. I did a lot of reading last night, and it looks like there's just dysfunction is too brutal of a word, but there's chaos or confusion around what it is, and really it needs, and I believe because of your size and because of how infant, and it's an opportunity to with technology you currently are, you can literally leapfrog over all of the existing messes.
Yeah.
And I think once one of the things we talked about was getting Starlink into these islands, and they're currently going through the approval process, because most of you may not know this, but a country owns not only its land, but what's over the land and what's under the land. And when I say under the land, it could be in soil, it could be in an ocean, it could be in the soil in the ocean. There's so much to think about and contemplate, but the frequencies and bands that's above the earth, like for instance, we work with the Navajos and the Chickasaws and the Cherokees. They don't even take those frequencies. They let everyone just take it. They don't even think they don't think twice. Now, currently that's not accurate. Like the Navajos are doing a study where they're saying, who's here? Who's pushing stuff? And then how do we get our own network, and how do we actually run separate from these others and then drive tolls and revenues? But that's not what I'm saying. Is the time is now for bandwidths and frequencies and satellite connectivity with other companies like Link. I don't know if you've ever messed with Link. Or, by the way, that was funded right out of our backyard where we are in Utah. So there's some interesting. Yeah.
We have some.
So Link is an interesting one, and then Starlink is another one. But I believe that there will be doors and windows that will open once some of this testing comes about, especially if we're running on 800 meg line. I think that the potential could be huge, and we've talked about some of these things. Right here in this body is probably not the right place to just disclose it, because it's still in the understanding phase. But with that being said, we would love to give you an update as to some of the advancements this last week. And at the same time, I think that would provide some contexts for some of the things, the discussions we didn't have this morning, that would then set us on a kind of a course that could get us where we need to go. So with that being said, I'm going to pull up a window here. And this is actually an interface. So in the software development world, and I don't know how much you've done, so you're going to have to kind of guide me. But this is actually Clear One that runs projects. And this is one type of project where you can see basically, and I know this may be hard for you to see, but you can see, imagine people that are filling out applications to become members or residents or citizens of your beautiful country, right? And you want to know who they are. You want to validate their character. You want to, do they do what they say they're going to do? Have they done some things that may not be appropriate to be a part of it? You know, do they have the wherewithal to do it? And, you know, are they adding value? In most countries, it's like, are you going to add value if you come here and not just suck from a system? And it goes back to what we were talking about before, where if we're really here to help one another, and we're not always having our hand out, but before you can take, you've got to also give and receive. It's just like what we talk about in America. The French gave this beautiful Statue of Liberty, right? There's a lot of strings that go with it. Not necessarily, you know, there's history to it, but there's also, with liberty, you also have responsibility. You can't just take one with the other. You can't just, and so the point being is, if people want to be a part of a digital world or a digital nation, that's one thing, and they can prove it. But then when they want to actually tie that to the physical part of the world, and that's why this conversation is so important, because really what we're contemplating is the connection between people going through a process to link the physical worlds and the digital worlds together, right? We talked about this umbilical cord, and right now you have a 900 megabit umbilical cord that you can't even see, right? So for instance, inside of the Pacific, you know, she talked about cable. Majority of it runs off of fiber, but it's very expensive to get. To get it, the countries usually have to say, we're going to go into debt. And to go into debt, you've got to become subservient to something. Maybe you're going to commit to providing something from your sea or from your land or from the people, whether it's work. I mean, Philippines does good job in servicing other countries. India does good job in saying, we're going to develop and we're going to teach the next generations how to think a certain way so they can develop a certain way. And other cultures just think, my point is by not doing anything, you've made a choice. By not being connected, by not deploying your own massive passport system, even though you have passports, even though you're a country, by not coming up with some tax-free scheme or from some tax haven or from passport scheme or some investment scheme, by not doing that, you've made a choice. And it creates a green field where really that physical world and digital world can actually come together, I believe, in a unique way that can change the world for everyone. As weird as that may sound today, literally, by you also pausing on the finance side of it, so foreign exchange, cross-border payments, your own currencies and your own minting, all of these different things that you've literally had the capabilities to do, you're recognized to do, by saying, we're going to do it right. And we're not going to, like, one thing that came up this last day was Simon actually put a kibosh and stopped a scaling program around their passport because it just wasn't right. Their timing wasn't right. And I love how he thinks about a vision for the future, even having faith in knowing that the parts and pieces will appear when they're supposed to appear. And that's really, I believe, the beauty of what's happened, at least in the last 48 hours. So the first thing is basically an example of someone, let's say this dude wants to come in, you can profile them, you know, you can have certain history, you can have certain laws, or let's drop this in. You can see certain team members can be collaborating, whether they're physically in the country, remotely, it can even communicate with the individual, and you can move it through a process. You can assign different individuals, and you can literally go through and say, you know what, they're just not in the processing stage. They're actually underqualified, they're rejected, they're complete, and boom, you move it through the process. And it becomes something that's not just something that you can see a process that multiple people can plug into, but it can have total transparency and recording and history for all of it at the same time. So we're not just talking about the systems, but we're going to talk about the digital world. What we're showing you here is a brand new page. So this is a new page that's actually talking about a global reset that humanity has been waiting for. Now, this URL is live. It's the first time it's actually been shown. This won't be the final resting stage. It will basically default into the others. But we're talking about the details of what we've been discussing, whether it's a reset that people are interested in about, whether it's countries, nations, communities. By the way, did you have a chance to read the Declaration of Unity last night?
Yes, sir.
Is that an amazing piece of? What did you think about it? What were your feedback or thoughts?
I think my first thought was, and the Honorable Minister used that word, divine. It's inspired. It is not academic. It has to be part of the pieces that forms humanity. It's talking about life and love, and those elements are not. They're not things that are a community. They're not elements that are academic. They're like the basic units of human life. And so it can only be what you would call the beginning of life itself and defining humanity, and it's not something you can commoditize or commercialize. It's something you live out, you exist for. And that to me was very interesting, that to have technology that is discussing the formational elements or the defining elements of human life. I found that very profound, very profound. And it's not something that you discuss. From a sensing perspective, it is something that is so identifying. It allows you to connect with it from a very basic human. This is who I am. So that was it. It removed it's not intellectual. It's not intellectual. It's any mother in the village, any somebody in a penthouse. It doesn't matter where you are. It connects you at the basic human level. Every one of us can pursue that and defend it and talk about it with expertise and because it's you. That's what I felt about it. It touched a different level of my human existence. That's that word. And I think the Honorable Minister used that word divine. I think that's the best way to put it. It's something inspired. It is not something acquired by academic. You don't have to go to school to acquire that. You just need to be human.
Yeah.
To do that, to touch it, to feel it, to know it, to defend it. You don't have to go through a system that educates you to it. You just need to breathe, and you want to fight for it.
Yeah.
That's what I felt. Yeah.
Would you fight for what that represented?
Absolutely. So ready for it, equipped for it. Walked in that world, I know it. I can fight it.
It's easy to just naturally not even have the question of would you dedicate your life to go and do this, especially when you turn on the news or you just kind of see what's happening to the next generation with, well, so much.
Yeah.
Do you have thought? Did you have a good chance to really read it?
Yeah, I had a read of it. I mean, similar to what Peter has said. And I told you yesterday about the motivation I had to get into politics.
Yeah.
It was partly because we're fighting about those issues that were in the Constitution. We had foreigners that were coming in with foreign concepts of human rights, those sorts of things. and yet in the islands, it's about the family unit, it's about the community.
Yeah.
And so there was a clash in the values, in the value system. And that was a part of the reason I resigned from work and took the risk of getting into office. And it's actually not common for young people to run. It's usually seen as someone who's gone through the civil service, you've retired, and then you run for office. But you know, I've always checked my motivation that it is the right motivation to do this. But those are the very things that motivated me to get into politics and to ensure that the Constitution, the Tuvalu's Constitution, continue to reflect those values, community-based values that are enshrined in our Constitution, because they were put there by our forefathers in the Constitution.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
39.
39. 3 beautiful kids, amazing wife. And right in that prime age, when you actually look at, like, there were 56 people that signed the Declaration of Independence. And the average age was like 24. It's like really low. I was surprised to find how low it was. And, you know, some of the older individuals, like at 39, for you to stand up and say, hold on, these people that are coming to my land, which has been here for thousands of years with my bloodlines on it, that are foreigners, that have foreign ideas that don't feel right. They don't feel right as an individual, as a father, as a son, as a husband. They don't feel right as a brother and sister to humanity. You basically said, I'll quit my job and I will go figure out how to do this political thing. Even if you're anything like me, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't do what you're doing. I would be on the outside building the systems to try and throw them over the fence so that people could actually, that wanted to play the games, the political games, the bureaucratical games, it's just, so you gave up your job. What did your wife say when she was like, are you crazy or go for it, or what did
Yeah, so yeah, they kind of all thought the same, my families, but then I had to explain to them my motivation, and they were, you know, they thought it was a.
Had your mother or father or grandparents ever been involved in politics?
My grandfather was actually the first person from my island to be elected into, while we were still a colony, they established an assembly. So the British were starting to introduce the concept of parliament in Tuvalu. So my grandfather was the first from my island to be elected.
Was it a positive thing, or was it something that was like, that doesn't feel right, Grandpa, with what you're doing?
Well, I went back and read a lot of the records, and they were actually the ones instrumental in pushing for the separation.
So in 71?
In 71. So they were actually involved in that. So
that's interesting. There's a gentleman on this call. His name is Wally. And he served, Wally, what year did you serve in Fiji? He was down there right before, like the year before Fiji did the same thing, where they said, hey, get out.
Yeah.
We're done with this craziness. We want to take our world back. Do you know what year that was, Wally? Say again? I saw you come off of mute, but you went back on. So you can just interrupt anytime. There you are. Go ahead. Wally? We can't hear you, buddy. Did you have a chance to read it?
I did. I like what they were saying, but for me, it gives me hope for the future. I see it that way. And like I say, I'm not living now. I have something to look forward to without living in a limbo, like a lie, in a life that is, you know.
Living in limbo like a lie.
Right.
That, yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people on here that feel a similar way. It's like, how can society just believe this stuff?
Just believe this. Yes.
Yeah.
And you've got kids, children?
I've got 3 kids.
Ages? What are the ages?
15, 13, and 12.
Oh, those are beautiful ages. Yours are a little younger than that, yeah.
Yeah, 13, 10, and 2.
And you're on the other side of all of it.
I'm on the other side of the spectrum.
We didn't do it. We didn't introduce Peter. So Peter is a brilliant man. I think that over the years we'll get to understand his important role in all of this, and I think he's actually learning for what the First Nation in the digital world will do, but then he'll take it back to his land.
Mhm.
And Mpume, we're coming. We're coming to do an introduction between you and Peter, and you'll get to know Mpume. You will absolutely love her. It was a similar type start, and she just bumped into this. She's like, "This is the future." She's just everything. Her whole life's full of houses, businesses, everything to try and just build all of this. She got the equivalent of FCC certification in Africa for these phones, for the ear, all of it done. Like she's like. But you will get to know her. But okay, so Peter comes with I would say, a life experience history. He's wise in his heart, and he has spent time with Amazon on the AWS side of things, so he understands infrastructure, data centers, ping power pipe, load balancing. He also not only lives in what's that?
EC2s.
Yeah, so storage. And so when we talk about decentralized storage, this is something that probably he wants to learn more about, but also sees the future in it and why this computing architecture is so important. But also Telstra. So for those of you that are in Australia and in the telecommunications world, that's the world he's most recently come out of. Yeah, so we've got some here. So again, he lives in Melbourne, but he remotely went, even before COVID, to the islands, and I don't know how long were you there, or I don't know how you got all connected up, but I would say just a very important trusted advisor on this three-legged stool of a leadership team that's going to help make this become a reality. So I'll continue to kind of walk through this new site. This is Phil Lane. What's that?
No.
This is Phil Lane here. This is who I told you about yesterday. So we'll watch a real quick video.
Okay.
He's amazing. So here we go.
Mitakiepi, my very, very beloved relatives of our human family. We live in a corrupt global system.
But are we a part of it?
Are we part of it? Are we part of it?
No.
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 We've been very patient as the few control resources we all need. The question is, can we change it?
We've all heard the voices shouting, "It's not your turn."
Our heart aches to do more, to be more. But time is running out.
Time is running out.
Time is running out.
We start by completely trusting we can make a difference. Because with one heart and one mind and many bodies, in unity, we can do anything.
Together we must take unprecedented, unified action.
And transform the world around us.
No matter how challenging that may be.
Individual sovereignty, freedom, love, and justice.
Unite us all.
Because there are indigenous-led technologies coming.
That gives us all the opportunity to stand,
to give, to love.
That's what responsible technology should do.
If you are one of those who believe it's your turn,
stand together.
Rise up.
Everyone.
Everywhere.
You, as a rising generation.
Yeah, so that's Phil Lane Jr., who literally hereditary chief, and inside of his cap that he had, each one of those feathers was given to him from different tribes. Wow. And I don't know if you saw it at the end, but he passes it from one generation to the next. So it's really, and those words were not scripted. He literally went out there, shot it with one shot.
Nice.
And you'll get to meet him. You will literally, we've been all around the world. In 2005, went to Panama with the Kuna Indians. 3 or 4 years before COVID, we went to New Zealand, and crazy work. But it comes back to bloodlines, who we are.
Yeah.
And so many folks that look at the difference in the colors of the skin, they think I'm better or I'm not good enough. But when we really realize who we all are and the importance of the individual and the importance of we all bleed the same blood color, you know, we only see red, but sometimes it's arteries and veins. I won't go through that, but okay, so I'll keep going through here. So I know we're not making a lot of time and probably going to be one of the longest we've ever had, but we'll try and pick it up. So this is basically powered by people, not by companies, not by money, not by an agenda. Yes, we need to have fiscal policy. We need to be fiscally responsible. We can't spend more than we make. We got to worry about cash flow. We got to worry about execution. We can't just get complacent and lazy. We got to do things. We got to move forward. Yeah, we may fail. Like this last year, we ended up having somebody that stole 5,200 phones from us. And we run such a tight ship that that's not good. Like we just can't take hits like that and so it wasted a year's worth of time. Or just simple things, just simple stuff. But speaking of phones, these are the phones that are currently out there in the world. Some with Google, some without Google. Some of you, maybe this will be the first time you see this. Notice how we actually are planning on a version for iPhones. So a version of Clear Life for iPhones. Digital Life for any Android phone, Clear Life for Clear phones, and then a decentralized phone series. So Armor phone, Freedom phone, Clear phones, 3 different Clear phones. That's what's currently out there, and we're seeing. What's that?
No, I said Armor phone and nice.
Say it one more time.
Armor phone and nice. Armor phones.
Armor phone. Yeah. So this is again, you know, it works on any Android phone. This is one thing that we wanted to accomplish during today's meeting. So as you can see, there's lots of tabs and lots of stuff we want to get through. But today is a special day, especially a day where we can actually set up a country, set up a digital nation, the first digital nation ever. So with that being said, Simon actually set up, all of 3 of the individuals set up a phone yesterday, but there's one version of the phone that is actually dedicated for the country itself. And so what we're going to do is have Simon open up Clear Life, and he is going to, which is actually has a profile that's set up for the country. Now this is separate from his personal phone, okay? But he's actually going to log in to the digital world. He's going to create a digital country, and he's going to create a digital asset for this digital country. Exactly. So if you go to the top, why don't you come right over here real fast? And you're going to, well, by the way, any of the Clear apps, if you just shake it, it'll give you this ability to record it and send the bug in so that it fixes it.
Oh, okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this guy and say scan QR code. So we're inside of Clear Life. And what I'm going to do here is just come over here. Let's see if this works. We're just going to go to digital world, say, actually, we can just do it off any of these navs. So go ahead and scan that. So this is the first time he's ever logged in, I would say with a Web3 login ever. So you basically, you just logged in using credentials from the phone into a secure ecosystem. And this ecosystem cryptographically knows who you are, and it can actually, it's building an identity for that login. Anything that you're doing, there's reputation that gets built behind it. So even if it's using Google Maps and going somewhere, or using, you know, a texting application and sending a message, all of these are, or logging into a phone. Every time you put your fingerprint on a phone, there's building reputation, but it's cryptographically linking to certain things. So you notice how we log in and all we see are certain things over on the left, from polls to balances to calls, lots of different things that he can build reputation on. But the first thing that we're going to do is create an organization, and we're actually going to create a country. So for those of you that are aware, you can actually create different types of organizations, from businesses to decentralized autonomous organizations, which are folks in the crypto world know, to special purpose vehicles, trusts, etc. So, but in this case, this is going to be one of the first countries that will actually be created. Now, go ahead and type in the name of the country. Okay. The website for the country.
And the existing one?
Yeah, the existing one.
Huh? I'll use my ministry one.
Do the ministry one.
.gov.tv.
Okay. Notice how they have their own top level domains as well, .tv. We're not going to do this today. We're going to have him scan again. So this is actually going to identify him, or this cryptographic process. So we're going to come up here. We're going to say scan. Just do it kind of flat. There you go. So this is basically going to, instead of him filling in his information, we're going to, the trademark, I don't know, like you don't even need, you're a country, so I don't know that you could create your own trademark system, which is a whole nother conversation. You could create your own patent system, which is a whole nother conversation. Like literally imagine, instead of people doing it with a registered registration system or a filing system that a third party analyzes, what if it's just based upon disclosure and first use and a type of blockchain stamp?
Yep.
So it's cryptographically proven that they did it first. Imagine a patent system that doesn't stifle innovation, but it lets people say, I created this. Because in some of the, like open patents, like the Open Invention Network, what they do is they actually say, hey, we're going to patent this, and we're going to make it so that none of these closed source companies can actually use it. So the open source fights with the closed source, right? It's a whole nother conversation. But you have a jurisdiction where not just copyrights or trademarks or patents can actually, because these are things you probably haven't even thought of yet. But all it is a technology, a web interface that you say, hey, file your patent here, your schematic, your layout, and it's done. File your legal claim here. You know, I've got a claim against this and somebody's going to come meter it. You can literally create an ecosystem. Like for instance, another country that's really figured this out, that's a small nation, is the Cook Islands, Rarotonga, Atutaki. They have figured out asset protection. Same thing with Cayman Islands. But it's not just small islands that do this. Panama is a bigger ecosystem, or Switzerland is probably the biggest that everybody knows, right? So, but those are just around privacy. There's so much more that can actually happen when you take cryptography and link it together. But those are different conversations, and I'm digressing. Here, we're just going to put not applicable today. And you're going to put your email address in there, because you're registering this. Like this is everything we're putting in here is cryptographically in a chain actually going to verify that this is happening. So when people go back and look at it, they can see who did it, how did they do it, contact phone number. We won't put this in. You can fill this out later on, but I think under this format, it's probably inappropriate. We're going to grab, we'll see if this is the right one. Okay, when I say create or add, this is actually going to create the first. Actually, I'll let you push it. Oh, it's already works. We'll let you do the little asset side of it. What do we got? Where's my little button at? You see it? There we go. So you've got one member, 0 assets. This is your cryptographic key. So that key is what represents this company. So it's like think about public keys, so to speak. This is actually your flag. We need to update that flag. And then what we'll do is we'll actually create a digital asset here. So you can type in the name.
Anything?
Your country name.
Your country name?
Put in your country name. And then the actual ticker symbol that you currently use.
Ticker symbol.
So the three-letter acronym.
Was it
The what?
What TV?
TV? Or is it TV?
No.
TUV.
TUV, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Do it capital. Yeah, there you go. And then what we'll do is we'll create an icon for that. Now, this is what we talked about yesterday. You have to have a quantity of authorized and issued, and this can never be changed. When we talk about crypto and cryptography, it's really math, and once it's done, it's done. That's not to say you can't start over, but all of this work, if you can't rebuild on it. So that's what also gives people the reassurity that if I have a certain quantity of a certain asset, like in the US, they just keep making money. So it's like, how do I know that this dollar is really worth what I think it is? It's not, because they just keep making it. But the reason that people go to Bitcoin is because they know there's only 21 million, and that over time, as inflation goes, the price is going to naturally go up. It's a mathematical reality, as long as people trust it and use it. The problem with Bitcoin is it takes an average of 10 minutes to transact, and the Lightning Network just centralizes decentralization. So in this ecosystem, it's just important that you come up with a quantity, and the things to think about are, if you're going to peg it to another currency that's out there. So for instance, in my opinion, the folks that actually set sail on the sea, which by the way, I don't know if you know this, China is one of the first countries in the world to not have an Independence Day, because it didn't need to become independent from anybody. But what people don't know is that when they had boats, but they actually said, we're not going to sail around the world and try and conquer other lands. That's not what we do. We're going to stay focused on our core, and we're going to nail what we're doing. And they've done an amazing job. If you read Sun Tzu or The Art of War, or any of these types of things, they've done a good job at what their core competency is. But unlike France and Spain and Britain/England, they went everywhere. I mean, you heard the stories, like we're going to go over to the PCC, the Polynesian Cultural Center here a little later on, but you've seen how they've gone through, and they've literally, like, you think about everything that's called New or Hamilton, or, I mean, you can literally, like how many parks in California, in Australia are named after something over in England or out of Canada, or out of, my point that I'm driving at is, you currently have pegged your value in your currency to the Australian dollar. How many Australian dollars are there in the world? And when you really understand it, it's this cascading effect of these people that went on the seas, conquered other lands, and basically colonialized those lands. So whether it's saying, oh, we're going to call this New Zealand or New Caledonia, or what I love is some of these countries that are saying, you know what, you can name us all you want. That's not who we are. This is who we are. We're taking our, like Vanuatu took their whole name back and kicked it out, kicked the old new crap out. And I'm not saying if people want to do that, that's fine, but giving them a vehicle where they can actually have choice is really what technology can actually do. So but the thing that you got to think about is, and this is what can make this cryptographic asset more valuable than the current currency systems. You have a specific amount. Now, what you authorize versus what you issue, they're different, and you can actually issue more that have been authorized. So if you authorize this many and you only issue this many, you can come back and actually issue the more.
Yep.
What I would propose is you do the same number, though, out of the gate. And so what Bitcoin did was they said 21 million, but we're actually going to deploy it over this period of time. And as time goes on, we're going to have the value and gamify how it gets out there. You can basically, because you're already pegged to the Australian dollar, you can basically just keep the value exchange to the Australian dollar, because that's what everybody already knows in their head, right? So don't just call it what it is. But when you actually put one of these cryptographic assets against an asset that you want to create a liquidity pool or where you can cash it in, like spend it, You just need to keep in mind that it's going to be set to the Australian dollar. The same. So I would go back to the question: how many Australian dollars are there in the world? How many U.S. dollars are there in the world? And some of the data or the answers can be found here. Now this, we're going to die battery wise. Yeah, the problem is.
This is your PowerPoint.
How much juice we got? Yeah, we're going to go down soon. Okay, so. Well, I guess I don't have enough. This was what I was trying to show you. So Australia, can you see Australia in here? Where'd it go?
Maybe straight there, the bottom.
Right there. So 1.3 trillion. And this was about 3 years ago. And what's crazy with COVID, all these numbers have basically almost doubled. And they'll actually keep going. Why? Because right before COVID, there's $91 trillion sprinkled into the markets between China, Taiwan, and the US, which is a little different conversation. My point is you want to think about this type of structure when you're doing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying every Australian dollar you want to issue, but think about it in population density. So if Australia has, what's the population of Australia?
25 million now.
So 25 million and you got 10,000. So you just kind of think about it that same way. Or you can just come up with a quantity. And then you just basically know that as every one of these that you're going to issue, they're going to have to be backed by an Australian quantity. So 1 for 1 is what you want to kind of think about. Okay. So with that being said, you get to plug in a number while I try and get a power cable.
Numbers, guys.
Yeah.
200.
I'll
300 million?
I'll put it to 2 trillion. Because with inflation the way it is, if it was 4 years ago, 1.3, I'm safe to put it to 2 trillion.
To be on the safe side, can I confirm from the bank itself? Like when we meet the foreign, my national bank, our national bank.
What they know how many Australian dollars?
I mean, that they print for us.
All up.
Right? Yeah.
They don't have an estimate or
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
How long will it take you to figure that out?
Should be later today.
You can put an estimate.
Let's put an estimate because then there's an issue.
Can you change it? Oh, sorry.
No, you can't change it.
Can't change it.
Yeah, that's what
Once
I'm
it's
saying.
done, it's
When
done.
it's done, it's done. So if we put it here, but it's here, then it's there.
So you're trying to match it to what we have at
The
moment.
reality that's in the ground.
How about we match it to our trust fund?
Yeah.
Trust
Trust fund. Yeah.
Average revenue.
The GDP.
GDP.
Yeah. So GDP is
Trust fund is now like 200 million now.
200 million.
Budget arrears is like 100 million.
Yes. As you said.
Is that right?
Let me check again.
It's
Let me check.
We just moved our studio around. We were running on power. Now we're not going to go down.
So with US, what you peg? If you're doing it in US, what do? You peg it with the current.
See, that's the that's the beautiful thing that you have here. Like this is uncharted territory where people can literally, but you can create something, but you need to have the economic analysis, the understanding of it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you measure twice, cut once. Because once you do it, if we don't do it right, we have to start over.
Yes.
And if you do it and then you start using it, then you really can't start over.
Let's wait for that number.
That's what I'm saying.
But I could argue you can get as much data as you want, and you're still not going to make the right choice.
That's right.
No, it's
I
just
think
that
we
we
go
need to
trillion
balance.
because trust fund is about 200 billion, taking into account revenue every year.
Yeah.
So think about it this way. You can always have reserves that you don't spend.
You don't spend.
Don't authorize.
Yeah.
So it's better to
I'll
go for a
go
high
1
number.
trillion. I'll go 1 trillion.
Yeah.
And I know that I have a reserve.
I mean, you can, and the other thing to think about is once you spend them, you spent them.
spend them.
and they're out floating.
Yeah.
You can, if you authorize it but you don't issue it, then you can literally just remove them and burn them. You can get rid of them.
Right. Yeah.
You can always
Yeah.
can always go from big to small, but you can't go from small to
To
big.
be, you can't exit.
And what's beautiful is every country. This is financial policy. This is how this stuff actually gets done. They think through it different ways. They come up with, well, what if this is in the cryptographic world? Math is math, though, and you can't make a mistake once you
It's
cut it.
It stands like it gives you.
So let me throw this out. In the next 2,000 years, how many Australian dollars do you think you would actually spend as a country?
Good question. 2 trillion.
2 trillion?
I would double what is currently Australian. I would double that. If Australia is about 1.3 at the moment, I would do 2 trillion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would double that.
Let's plug in 2 trillion.
No, once you plug it in,
Yep.
if you spend 2 trillion and you want to spend 2.2 trillion, it's not there.
It's not there.
You see the, and everyone has the same conundrum.
Yeah.
If Ripple's going to do cross-border transactions with other countries, they're going through these same types of conversations.
So that number is more of a ceiling than
Yes, exactly.
a floor.
Yeah. So those are things you got to think about. The other thing is, this may be just a simple activity, and you may go back to your prime minister of finance, and they may say, "Hey, we can't do this. We can't approve this." Because what we're doing here is we're cryptographically creating it. You still have to go back and get full approval,
Yeah.
green lights from everyone, and then you got to get the people to adopt it. So
But
it's one thing.
you'll still be the expert to guide them. Listen, they will be the expert to guide them. There is no information that they have that the minister doesn't have now. I think he'll still be asked the question. Like he was sitting here today in the cabinet, they will still ask him, "What do you think?" So I would still default to a multiplication factor than an actual number.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to pick a base and then multiply because there's no data they're gonna get. I give you that.
Sorry, can I speak in my language?
You please do. Please do.
Ngabe mengapa ko find dato ke uke? Ne? Apa de la orang dia no find dato, no find dato kamali na tene, dia find dato ko na na ko. Dia ko lai. So really like kawan dato. Me find dato fai lo ke uke kilo.
But then we also need to back it up.
Then it has to come back to the Senate, the reserve, everything, the volume of money. I was trying to say it in a way.
So backing up with what gold or land or
like your resources.
Yeah.
Like the value of our tuna,
your
the value of our
assets.
.tv,
the value
the
of
value of
the
our trust
sea,
fund.
the ocean.
So we can all group them together. And see.
Well, so think about it this way. The United States of America in 1933 lost its gold standards, and leadership jumped on a plane and went to Saudi Arabia and said, "We need your help. We don't need your oil. We don't need your money. We don't need your reserves. We need you to sell your oil in US dollars." And the United States of America has a strong currency system because of one, trust. The United States dollar used to be built under God we trust.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I love Vanuatu is because that is what their model for their country is. Did you know that? And it's just an eight. And they don't sell their land. So Vanuatu, Tuvalu, you don't sell the land. You innately have a resource.
The value of the land. Yeah.
But in America, they don't. They gave it away. It was the wild, wild west. If you come here, if you build this, if you sit on this, you get the land, it's yours. If you mine it, if you get this, if you get the oil, if you get the gold, it's yours. It's wild, wild west. That is not something that other countries, for instance, in 2017, which folks don't understand is Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, all of these different small countries that are oil rich actually started walking away from the United States dollar being what it was sold on. 2017, you know what they actually started selling it all on? The renminbi. Japan, Taiwan, Iran, all of them were buying oil. Russia were buying oil with the Chinese renminbi. Why? Because China, for the last 40 years, has been amassing precious metals, which is what people think is valuable in the world. Let me ask you this, Simon, when was the last time you used gold for anything other than a wedding ring? You know, this is a $15 silver ring. Like literally, I can't turn it in for $10 to trade it in against another ring. For me, it has meaning and value to it because of what it represents. But it's like, okay, well, they used to do fillings in gold in your teeth, or, you know, maybe there's an electronic component that has it. My point is all it is a proof of value from how much time and energy and effort it took to exhume it from the earth to then store it as a form of value. And people trust it. But what is the real value that we have? We as individuals have time. We've been given families and community, but ultimately we reside on this rock that we stake our flag on and our color on and our jurisdiction on. And that's what these folks sailed around the world, Spain, France, England, to try and do, and they did it to your country. And now you said in 1971, we're standing up and we're doing it on our own. And China recently has done the same thing. And that's one of the reasons why the Chinese dollar will actually be strength in purchasing power globally. And as this digital ecosystem continues to mature, the question is not, will it be digitally based? We know it's going to go digital. The question is, will it be centralized or will it be decentralized? And the system that we're contemplating creating this asset in is the most pure decentralized system that humanity has, period. But the counterbalance to that, in 2018, China launched the most centralized system. So they're using blockchain to actually use digital assets. They said to all of their banks, everything that you have on deposit today is now converted into this. I'll call it blockchain-based system that's digital. But the point is China backs their asset with real metals, real gold, platinum, right? And they have rooms and rooms and rooms full of this stuff. The government owns the land there. They own the housing there. It really is a different ecosystem than America. And that's one of the reasons why these little islands in the Pacific are very unique.
It's community.
They care about survival. Like, for instance, let's say that the pandemic that we just experienced, times it by 100. It's not just about, am I worried that you might sneeze on me? It's about real death. You think about it. How many warheads do we have sitting in cold storage that are being retired, that are nuclear capable? And how many egos do we have? I wouldn't even get into the war side of it. All I'm trying to drive at is self-sovereignty, one, self-sustainability, two. These islands are actually independent and sovereign. Yes, there's global warming. That is the next pandemic. Like, that will be the big agenda. What you're in the middle of, what threatens your existence, what needs to be embraced by organizations like so-called United Nations. And again, I don't want to be negative, but you will know their fruit by their effort and energy of what they actually pop off the trees. Is it good fruit? Is it actually working? Yeah. Is it greedy? Is it prideful? Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it, so I know we're talking about a lot of different things, but ultimately it goes back to what you said earlier. You have tuna in the ocean. You have minerals in the sand. You have airwaves over the air. And you may today think, We're not digitally connected like the rest of the world, but I look at that as a massive competitive advantage. Your people are free. They still have. You nailed it the other day, social dilemma. I mean, if you really understand how technology, and that's nothing compared to what's coming when you layer on artificial intelligence and machine learning with heuristics and some of the stuff that's coming with OpenAI, it's like crazy. So you can really go back to your cabinets or your councils or your tribes, and you can say, we really want to put everything we've got behind this. Our currency needs to be our bond. And if once you figure out that a currency can actually be pure, with good intent, with real assets and infrastructure behind it, people will trust it and come to it, just like they did the United States dollar back in the day. Just like they're starting to do. We're talking about digital asset and fiat assets. So when we come back over to this chart, how many fiat assets, like if we add up every single data point that's on here, how many fiat assets are there in the world? And then we know there's another 91 trillion that's getting layered out there. So even if we said 200 trillion, I mean, 200 trillion total assets in the world, let's say that that's the equivalent of, and this is actually equivalent of a US dollar. So let's say that that's out there. Does it matter? Is it just a number? What matters is what's behind it. Is it mathematically proven? Like a lot in the crypto or cryptography world, it's just straight up lies. And what I mean by that is people don't truly own their own keys, and so other people can manipulate what's behind the scenes. And so when it comes time to be liquid, they can't actually go liquid. But if you can create and authorize a quantity, but only issue what you can actually back up with assets and that is the safe place.
Yeah, that's right.
If you can do that, then you can actually create a currency for a country that can be protected, that can be trusted, that can be preserved. But you got to realize you're attaching your wagon in Tuvalu to the Australian wagon, which is attached to a crown, which the missus just died.
Right.
And rest her soul in peace. But what value? I mean, I don't know about you. I met a couple this morning from Vancouver Island, and that country is just like it's just like Australia. They got beautiful parts, beautiful Victoria, beautiful Hamilton, amazing parts of the world. And you tell me how's the crown added value there? How do they serve the people, or have they just basically taken over? And again, I don't want to be negative, but just look at the fruit, you shall know them, so to speak. So with that being said, this number is still a very important number to come up with. And for those that are online, I don't know if you really understand what's happening here, but creating a digital nation, a part of the digital world, and creating the first digital asset that is actually a currency that runs that nation is a very big deal. Massive, massive deal. And these types of questions and thoughts are not just provoking thought-wise, but they're important. It's important to understand the different types of assets, and maybe this will help us here, are real estate, an asset, which could be like real estate, land, vehicles, a coin, which is like a security or public offering, so people can come into it. And that's another thing. You could actually go about it and say, you know what? We're going to allow these things to go on public exchanges. Now, you understand the crypto world. So I'll meet with like CZ and some other folks in the coming weeks. And these are some of the CEOs of the biggest, like Binance is one of the biggest exchanges in the world, right? Where do they come from? Who are they? How does it work? But you could actually create not just an asset or an infrastructure. An infrastructure is like a farm, a natural resource, or roads. An NFT is what everybody's all googly-eyed over. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. But I think the Security and Exchange Commissions basically just give them a green flag to say, hey, you can say that artwork on that wall is worth $2 million or $20. It's up to you. Speculation. Go for it. We can't stop you with that. But when you talk about something that is actually on a public exchange, like the New York Stock Exchange, you got to make sure that the people that are buying that are protected. They know what they're buying. They know what they're getting. They understand the risks. They have certain liquidity. They fit in a category. They're protected. As long as you follow certain guidelines, you're really not looking to take advantage of folks, and you're doing certain things from a disclosure standpoint, you could think about this to say, you know what? We're not just going to create a token or a reward. We're going to create something that's a coin or a security. And we're going to back it with our land, and we're going to put it on public exchanges in the crypto world. Now, what you got to remember is, if on this other chart we're looking at all of the fiat stuff in the public world on the right, let's say it's $200 trillion. Do you know how much is in Bitcoin or in Ethereum or in all of crypto? We're only talking a couple billion. So by limiting yourself to look at it just as a coin, it may be a myopic, stupid decision. Yeah. So these are all things you got to think about, right?
There has to be baselines. You have to work with baselines. These ones are doing it. It can't be something physically that is guiding. You have to think, okay, like you just said, Bitcoin is 2 trillion. But do I think the value will be in 100 years more than that? Absolutely I do, right? They're human resource. They're undersea. They're fish. They're spectrum. They're brand. So
how many hectares or acres is Tuvalu made up of?
27 square kilometers.
I would think of season. What do you call it? The ocean size.
Ocean is almost 1 million.
That's what I was saying.
Kilometers.
I would think that because of the.
So 1 million square kilometers. So really, a big value is what's in the sea.
That's right. That's what I would think. I would think about what it is. The ocean defines the boundary that defines Tuvalu. It's 1 million.
We're a big ocean state.
It's an ocean state. It's not what physically rises up above the sea. It's the definition and demarcation that the United Nations recognizes as this is Tuvalu. You cross that, you're crossing into Tuvalu.
You may not be on a dock, but you're in there's waters.
You're in the waters. That's the measure of it. It's 1 million square kilometer.
And that's linked to what we've been doing around statehood.
Yes, right.
In addition to statehood is the claims of the maritime zones.
Exactly, because once it goes down, it joins the rest of what was
the world still recognizes that that's the one the land is known.
That's right.
We have 9 countries that have signed up recognizing that.
Exactly.
Recognizing that Tuvalu's claims into waters.
Yeah. So it has to be defined within what is above ground, above the ocean, and then what is under the ocean, and then you define
and in the airwaves,
and the airwaves, and it's recognized by the United Nations. And make me laugh. It is recognized by the United Nations. This is the demarcation of it.
What I would say underscores this whole conversation even more so is how you determine what kind of asset it is, and how you determine how many are authorized and issued. And by the way, you can set it up so there's multi-signatures. If you authorize this many and you only issue this many and you want to issue more, you can set it up so that multiple people have to actually issue their keys, like a voting process, to approve it, so then it unlocks.
Yeah.
That's cryptographic multi-sig capabilities. It's technology can enable that kind of thing. But the point that I'm driving at is, just like you're recognized by 9 other countries and treaties, this work here is setting the precedence and a baseline for the future that could make or break. So if we do this the wrong way, if you don't provide liquidity for it, if you don't provide real assets for it, it could be a negative thing. But on the flip side, if you really provide something that is digital, you can remove costs, remittance from people that are working in other parts of the world and sending money home, or people that are working at home and sending money abroad. The 30% or 2% or 2.4%, whatever Western Union is or Visa is, those fees go away. But it's only as good as the value that's behind it. So it comes down to How can we digitally create it? How can we create policy within the country to back it? You know, because your work's just getting started.
Yeah.
You know, but at least you have a target now. You knew before I can go in the dark and I know something's there, but now it's starting to come about.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, and maybe we come back to this.
We come back to that, I think so. Yeah.
So we don't issue it today, we come back to it.
We come back to it.
That's where we end up? Okay, perfect.
But then read around what it is, what are the baselines that you can compare with?
Okay, so what we're going to do is, and I hope everyone online is understanding what we're doing. We're going to push a pause button on this because it's such a big decision. We're not going to do what's authorized and issued, even though we're ready to pull triggers. Like literally, you put in 2 numbers and you do 1 scan in the description. We push it and it goes onto your phone, and then you can share it real time. And I would argue that we should do it while we're all together, because when's that going to happen again? So
we hit till Thursday.
You're too fast.
So we've got time to consult.
He's out Thursday morning, right?
You can come back tomorrow.
Yeah, but tomorrow.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
My schedule tomorrow is good.
So then what we'll do is we'll have a special session tomorrow, and we'll just get this done, and we'll let everybody know the following week where we ended up. Are there any questions or feedback or thoughts from the general audiences that want to ask questions or want to be involved in any of this session today?
Hey, Michael, it's Beck from Australia. How are you?
Good. Kia ora.
Hi. Yeah, first, it's like, this is amazing. And what is happening is just, I am very blessed to be a part of this and to meet everyone here. And I just want to, I guess, get some contact details, if that's okay, Anoya and Peter. I work in telecommunications in Australia, and I've had 7 years experience in technology infrastructure, mostly in mixing technology infrastructure. And I have come from a big background of mining operations as well. And I have a broad range background in new biology. And I have I've got some amazing stuff. I probably can't talk about it here, but I would love to share that information.
That's good.
So if I could just get some contact details, Michael,
we'll
someone at any stage would be great.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You know how to get me, so I'll gather that for you.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Isn't it neat to have him here? I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it really. My cousin is actually, I don't know if you know people from Samoa, but my cousin is a chief in one of the villages there. And so I'm just starting to get him on to some of this technology as well.
Any other thoughts or feedback or comments? Becca, thank you so much. Terrence?
Hello and welcome. I'm Terrence, and I'm in the Gold Coast in Australia, so just to the west of your island. And I've been with Clear for 15 months now, and working with Michael and the team, and just wanted to introduce myself. I provide technical support down here for the Clear phone and other platforms, Clear One, and I'm on a learning curve with the digital world as well. So just available here in Australia if you need help, and with your phones as well. We can try and remote in on your 8 megabits satellite and fix your phone up if you have any challenges.
We'll reach out.
Thank you.
So he's a wonderful resource. And all 3 of them yesterday, Terrence actually went through and they built their phones, they updated them, they enabled them for Google if they wanted it. And then they updated Clear Life, set up a profile, got Clear Pay going. And 1 out of the 3 actually got a Clear Pay Visa coming, and we did transactions with all 3 of them. And so And I was telling them along the way, you're going to train many how to do this. And it's nice to know that there's Terrences out there in the world that care and stand by, wonderful people. And there's a lot of details underneath what you're seeing. You know, how do the apps work? How do the update systems with the apps work? How do the marketplaces work? How do the operating systems update? You know, how supply chain, I mean, there's so many details, but really all you have to do is navigate through the political mess that you've already said, honey, I'm quitting my job. We're going to go do this crazy thing and run for office. And then you got there. You just have to keep pushing forward with that all the way through, whether it's getting an asset created, whether it's backing the asset, whether it's getting approval. I mean, there's so much more that you can do that I don't even see and I can't even articulate to you. You'll see it. You'll know what needs to happen, but it's a matter of all of us locking arms and standing up. You don't have to create a phone.
No.
You don't have to figure out the standards, all the other stuff. Like, but the work that you will do is just as important as creating a phone, as creating the derived keys for decentralization, as lots of people have just come together and done, but you are where the rubber meets the road, where the umbilical cord connects from what you call in your speech the cloud, because there is no cloud, it's someone else's system. But how those systems are intelligently architected and put together is really what can make the massive difference for humanity. And if it's a model that actually is intelligently designed, kind of like what we get to live on here on Earth, but in a digital sense, an ecosystem, it truly can build a system for the new millennium. Not just another couple hundred years, but 1,000+ years, if we do this right. And so for it to roll out and take a year or 2 or 5 or 10 to get adopted, that's nothing compared to thousands of years that this system can actually be realized. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like when we were talking earlier, it's like, take time out of the equation. Let's just be patient and see where this can go.
Yeah.
And so naturally, for those that know me, I would love to just push this thing all the way through and get this ticker symbol out there, get it valued. But there's a lot that needs to be thought about. And we look forward to you tuning in next week, same time, same place. And who knows where we'll be or what we'll be doing. But hopefully we can report back to you how this actually gets created. So we'll tune off if there's no other questions. It looks like there's 14 hands up, but we'll give you 3 seconds. If someone has something else to say, feel free on whatever channel. If not, this guy's a stud, by the way. I love him. So we'll go ahead and tune off. Thank you, everybody. Much love, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So this will take a while to shut all this stuff down. Bye, Bobby. You'll like him. He's a really good dude.
Yeah.
So I'm ending the meeting for all of those, and then over here I'm going to stop the streaming.